Hand in your resignation, or we'll fire you for cause, Amanda Sterling said, sliding a blank piece of company letterhead across the conference table like she was dealing cards at a poker game she'd already won. Her voice carried that corporate authority she'd inherited from 3 months of executive training, but 0 years of actual management experience. The choice is yours, Gregory, but I need your decision in the next 15 minutes. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. I'm Gregory Mitchell, 54 years old, Vice President of Engineering at Cascade Manufacturing, a position I'd held for the past 19 years after spending 6 years climbing from junior engineer to senior project manager. 25 years total with this company. A quarter-century of designing industrial equipment that kept factories running across North America, of 60-hour weeks solving impossible problems, of weekend emergency calls fixing catastrophic failures that would have cost clients millions. Amanda was 31, wearing a designer suit that cost more than my monthly car payment, her Northwestern MBA diploma prominently displayed on her office wall like a trophy she'd won rather than a credential she purchased. She'd been promoted to Chief Operating Officer 11 weeks ago when the company had been acquired by Quantum Industrial Holdings, a private equity firm that specialized in buying manufacturing companies, gutting their experienced staff, and extracting maximum profit before flipping them to the next buyer. Standing behind her was Michael Brennan from legal, looking distinctly uncomfortable but not uncomfortable enough to actually object to what was happening. And Christine Park, our new CFO, reviewing something on her tablet with the expression of someone who'd rather be anywhere else but had learned to keep her mouth shut during corporate executions. The for-cause part was particularly insulting. I discovered 2 weeks ago that Amanda's cost-cutting initiative had led to sourcing substandard steel for our industrial press assemblies, steel that didn't meet the load-bearing specifications I'd approved, and that could potentially fail catastrophically in factory environments where workers stood within crushing distance. When I'd raised urgent safety concerns in last Monday's executive meeting and threatened to report the violations to OSHA, Amanda had scheduled this meeting to eliminate her problem. The problem being me, not the safety violations that could kill someone. Resignation or termination for cause, Amanda repeated, her perfectly manicured fingernails drumming impatiently on the mahogany table. Your choice, Gregory. But if we fire you for cause, you forfeit your pension contributions, your deferred compensation, and we contest your severance package. Resignation is cleaner for everyone involved. I looked at the blank letterhead, then at Amanda's smug expression that said she'd already won, then at Michael and Christine, who both studiously avoided eye contact with me. 25 years of loyalty, innovation, and literally life-saving engineering work reduced to a 15-minute ultimatum in a conference room that I'd helped design when we'd renovated this building back in 2008. I'll write my own resignation, I said calmly, pulling out my phone. Amanda actually smiled, probably thinking I'd rolled over without a fight. Smart decision. Just keep it professional and straightforward. Standard 2-week notice. Effective date. Nothing dramatic. We'll process your final paycheck, and you can leave with your dignity intact. I opened my phone's email app and typed exactly 1 sentence. 43 words that would change everything, though Amanda had absolutely no idea what was coming. Then I sent it directly from my phone to Amanda, Michael, Christine, and copied HR Director Robert Patterson, and the company's registered agent for good measure. Done, I said. Check your email. Amanda opened her laptop, clicked on my message, and scanned it quickly. Her smile didn't falter. She clearly hadn't actually read what I'd written, just saw that I complied with her ultimatum. Excellent choice, Gregory. Very professional. Michael will handle the exit paperwork. Security will escort you out this afternoon once you've cleared your office. I stood up, straightened my jacket with the kind of calm you learn after 25 years of corporate politics and 4 years in the Navy Seabees before that, and walked out without another word. What Amanda, Michael, and Christine hadn't bothered to actually read, what they'd assumed was a standard resignation, was a 1-sentence letter I'd sent. I hereby resign from my position as Vice President of Engineering at Cascade Manufacturing, effective immediately upon receipt of full and complete settlement of all compensation, benefits, deferred payments, and other amounts owed to me under my employment agreement dated March 15, 2012, as amended and applicable law. 43 words that look like a standard resignation but function like a legal bear trap with teeth. See, what Amanda didn't know, what the entire Quantum Industrial Holdings executive team had never bothered to verify, was that my 2012 employment agreement contained language that had been negotiated when Robert Cascade Sr. was still running the company his grandfather had founded and actually valued the people who built the equipment that made him wealthy. Back in 2012, Cascade Manufacturing had been going through aggressive competition from overseas manufacturers. Several of my senior engineering colleagues had been recruited away by Chinese and German competitors offering significantly better compensation packages. Robert Sr. had called me into his office personally, the office that Amanda now occupied, and asked what it would take to keep me. I didn't want a corner office or a company car. I wanted security, protection, ironclad guarantees that if the company was ever sold, if leadership ever changed, if things went sideways, I'd be taken care of. Robert Sr. had agreed without hesitation. We had brought an outside employment counsel, not the company's usual corporate lawyers, but a firm I'd selected specifically because they represented executives and engineers, not corporations. The resulting contract had taken 6 weeks to negotiate and included provisions about deferred compensation, stock appreciation rights that vested immediately upon any change of control, and a severance package triggered by any forced resignation or constructive termination. The critical clause was buried in Section 9, subsection E. In the event of resignation under duress, constructive termination, or resignation following a change of corporate control, employee's resignation shall not become effective until employer has provided full and complete settlement of all compensation outlined in this agreement, including but not limited to base salary through effective resignation date, all deferred compensation regardless of vesting schedules, all stock appreciation, rights valued at current fair market value, all accrued vacation and personal time, all performance bonuses earned but unpaid, and severance payment equal to 30 months base salary plus benefits continuation. I'd agreed to what they thought was a generous severance, 2.5 years' salary if they ever fired me. What they hadn't realized was that the resignation wouldn't become effective until everything was fully paid, meaning until they settled all those obligations. I remained technically employed, still accruing benefits, still owed daily salary, still entitled to participate in any company events, bonus distributions, or equity changes. And my deferred compensation alone, accumulated over 25 years of taking stock appreciation rights and deferred bonuses instead of immediate cash, was worth approximately $3.8 million at current company valuation. If you've ever been forced out after decades of loyalty just for protecting worker safety, hit subscribe right now. Drop a comment if you know what it feels like to watch private equity prioritize profit over people's lives. Because what happens when their lawyer actually reads my resignation letter is going to prove that sometimes the best protection is a contract they forgot existed. 2 days passed before someone at Cascade Manufacturing actually read what I'd written instead of just assuming I'd surrendered. 48 hours during which Amanda probably celebrated eliminating her biggest obstacle to cost-cutting, during which the Quantum executives probably started planning even more aggressive material substitutions now that the annoying safety-focused engineer was gone. Meanwhile, I was sitting in my home office in suburban Milwaukee, going through 25 years of meticulously organized employment documents. Every contract amendment, every stock appreciation grant, every deferred compensation agreement, every written bonus promise, every safety memo I'd sent that had been ignored. I'd learned long ago from my father, a union steel worker for 38 years, to keep copies of everything because companies have selective memory when it's convenient. My 2012 employment agreement sat in a fireproof safe in my basement, along with the 3 amendments we'd negotiated in 2015, 2018, and 2021. Each amendment had added protections, accelerated vesting upon change of control, expansion of what constituted constructive termination, specific definitions of what full settlement meant, and penalty interest for delayed payments. The 2021 amendment was particularly important. That's when Quantum Industrial Holdings had first tried to acquire us. The deal had fallen through, but Robert Sr. had been spooked enough to enhance my contract protections, knowing that if a private equity firm ever succeeded in buying Cascade, I'd be an immediate termination target as one of the highest-paid employees. That amendment added specific language. Upon any change of corporate control, all deferred compensation and stock appreciation rights vest immediately regardless of any previous vesting schedules. Employee may elect to receive settlement of vested amounts within 60 days of change of control or may defer settlement until termination of employment, at which point all amounts become immediately due and payable. I deferred settlement when Quantum finally succeeded in acquiring us 8 months ago, in March 2025. At the time, my deferred compensation was worth about $3.2 million. 8 months later, with strong company performance and stock appreciation, it was now worth $3.8 million. The call came at 11:23 a.m. on Thursday morning, exactly 48 hours after I'd walked out of Amanda's office. Michael Brennan from Legal, his voice carrying a tension I'd never heard before, and I'd known Michael for 12 years, had worked with him on dozens of contract negotiations. "Gregory, we need to urgently discuss your resignation letter. Specifically, we need clarification on what you meant by effective immediately upon receipt of full and complete settlement." I leaned back in my home office chair, looking out the window at the November rain, and allowed myself a small smile. "What part needs clarification, Michael?" There was a long pause, the unmistakable sound of papers being frantically shuffled. "Your resignation states it's effective upon full settlement. What exactly are you claiming Cascade owes you?" "Everything outlined in my employment agreement dated March 15th, 2012, as amended in 2015, 2018, and 2021. Section 9, subsection E. I emailed you complete copies of all 4 documents this morning at 7:42 a.m., along with supporting documentation and a detailed settlement calculation spreadsheet." Another pause, even longer. I could picture Michael in his office, face going pale as he pulled up the contract that had been buried in HR file for over a decade. "Gregory, your 2012 contract was superseded by the company-wide compensation restructuring that Quantum implemented in April." "No, Michael, it wasn't. My contract specifically states in Section 14 that it can only be modified by written agreement signed by both parties with at least 30 days advance notice. I never signed any modification agreement. The April restructuring applied to employees without individual contracts. I have an ironclad individual agreement that predates Quantum's acquisition." I could hear frantic typing, probably Michael finally actually reading the documents I'd sent. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted from confusion to something approaching panic. "Gregory, if we're interpreting your contract correctly, and I'm not conceding that we are, but if your interpretation is correct, you're claiming—" He trailed off, clearly doing math in his head that was giving him heart palpitations. "I'm claiming my complete contractual entitlements. Michael, would you like me to walk you through the calculation?" Silence. Then, barely audible, "Yes." I opened my laptop to the detailed spreadsheet I prepared with my employment attorney, Sarah Richardson at Mitchell & Associates. We'd spent 8 hours over the past 2 weeks building this calculation, reviewing every clause, checking every precedent. Let's start with the straightforward items. I began professionally. First, my base salary through the resignation effective date. Since my resignation hasn't become effective yet, my salary continues accruing at my daily rate of $923.08. That's my annual salary of $240,000 divided by 260 working days. As of today, that's 2 days, so $1,846.16 and counting. "Gregory, that's ridiculous. You can't claim." "Michael, let me finish." Second, accrued vacation time. I have 187.5 hours of unused vacation accumulated over 3 years because I've been too busy preventing safety disasters to take time off. At my hourly rate of $115.38, that's $21,633.75. Third, My accrued personal days, 60 hours worth $6,922.80. Fourth, outstanding expense reimbursements from the Des Moines plant emergency repair in August, $4,847.22 that was submitted but never processed. Michael, those 4 items total $35,249.93. But those are just minor preliminary amounts. Shall I continue to the major contractual obligations? The silence on the other end was absolute. I could picture Michael frantically pulling up my contract, his hands probably shaking as he read Section 9, subsection E for the first time, and realized what they'd triggered. Fifth, I continued calmly, my annual performance bonus. Section 7.3 of my 2012 agreement, as amended in 2018, guarantees an annual performance bonus equal to 85% of base salary for meeting engineering targets and safety benchmarks. I not only met all targets, I exceeded every single one. Our engineering division generated $87 million in revenue this year, 19% above projections, and maintained a zero-incident safety record until Amanda started sourcing substandard materials. The bonus is explicitly payable upon termination for any reason. That's $204,000. I heard something drop on his end. Definitely not a pen this time. Maybe his coffee mug. Maybe his dignity. 6. My deferred compensation. Over 25 years, I've deferred $890,000 in bonuses and compensation into the company's deferred compensation plan, which has grown with company performance to a current value of $2,140,000. Section 11.2 states this becomes immediately payable upon termination following a change of control. That occurred when Quantum acquired us. 7th, my stock appreciation rights. I have 42,000 SARs granted between 2012 and 2024 that vested immediately upon the Quantum acquisition per the 2021 amendment. At current company valuation of $41.50 per share, the price Quantum used in their own internal valuations last month, those SARs are worth $1,743,000. The silence was so complete I actually checked if the call had dropped. Michael, you still there? His voice came back barely above a whisper. Did you just say $1.7 million in stock appreciation rights? $1,743,000 to be precise. But I'm not finished. 8th, my severance package. Section 9.4, as amended in 2021, states that if my employment is terminated without documented cause, or if I resign for good reason within 24 months of a change of control, I'm entitled to 30 months of salary continuation plus full benefits continuation. That's $600,000 in salary plus approximately $48,750 in health insurance premiums, dental, vision, life insurance, and other benefits. Gregory, we can't. Michael, the total settlement amount under my employment agreement is $4,766,999.93, plus statutory interest accruing at 6% annually per Wisconsin law, calculated from today forward. And since my resignation hasn't become effective yet, I remain technically employed, which means I continue accruing salary at $923.08 daily, remain covered by company health insurance at $4,875 monthly, remain eligible for 401k matching contributions at 6% of salary, and retain all other employee rights and benefits. There was a sound like someone trying to breathe through a paper bag. Gregory, there must be some mistake. This can't possibly be right. There's no mistake, Michael. I consulted extensively with Sarah Richardson at Mitchell & Associates. Perhaps you're familiar with her work. She argued the landmark Brennan versus Westfield Technologies case before the Wisconsin Supreme Court in 2019, establishing that conditional resignations are enforceable contracts. She's reviewed my resignation letter and employment agreement exhaustively and assures me everything is ironclad. We'll fight this in court. There's no way. You absolutely should take this to court if you want. I interrupted pleasantly. Hire expensive litigation counsel. Spend $400,000 on legal fees fighting me because I have 25 years of documentation. I have the original 2012 contract signed by Robert Cascade Sr. I have all 3 amendments with proper signatures and notarization. I have emails from Amanda Sterling dated October 8 explicitly discussing eliminating high-salary employees to improve EBITDA margins for the next quantum flip. I have recorded conversations, legally obtained under Wisconsin's one-party consent law, from the October 22nd safety meeting where Amanda overruled my material specifications to save costs despite my documented safety warnings. I paused, letting that sink in. Most importantly, Michael, I have my OSHA complaint filed yesterday documenting the substandard steel issue, complete with materials testing reports, load-bearing calculations, and Amanda's written approval of specs that don't meet industry safety standards. If someone gets crushed by a press failure, the criminal liability will extend to every executive who knew about the problem. That's you, Amanda, and Christine. Federal criminal charges, not just civil liability. The silence now was the sound of a corporate lawyer realizing his company had just handed an employee a multi-million-dollar settlement on a silver platter while simultaneously creating potential criminal exposure. Oh, I continued calmly. Cascade can pay me what they contractually owe me under the agreement, Robert Sr., and I negotiated in good faith 13 years ago. I'll sign a standard release with mutual non-disparagement clauses, and we all move forward with our lives. Your choice, Michael. But every day you delay costs you $923.08 in salary continuation, and if we're not settled within 60 days, penalty interest starts compounding at 6% annually on the entire amount. The meter is running. He hung up without saying goodbye. Amateur move, but understandable given he just realized he was looking at a $4.7 million problem that would probably cost him his job. 9 to 4 minutes later, my phone rang again. Christine Park, the CFO, and she was decidedly not calm. Her voice had that tight quality people get when they are trying not to scream. What the hell kind of game are you playing? Gregory? I'm not playing any game, Christine. I resigned as Amanda requested, using language from my valid employment contract. You deliberately engineered this resignation to trap us into a massive payout. I wrote a legally valid conditional resignation based on contract language that was negotiated 13 years ago. Amanda accepted it without reading it carefully. She had 3 executives in that room, none of whom apparently noticed the conditional language. How is that my fault? The quantum board is furious. They are demanding to know why we're suddenly facing a $4.7 million liability from a terminated employee. I haven't been terminated, Christine. That's the entire point. I'm still employed because my resignation hasn't become effective yet, and I will remain employed, continuing to accrue salary and benefits until you provide the full settlement outlined in my contract. We're not paying you a goddamn cent of that deferred compensation or stock rights. You're out of your mind if you think. Then don't pay me, I interrupted pleasantly. Keep me employed indefinitely. Continue my $240,000 annual salary. Keep me on the health insurance at $4,875 monthly. Keep accruing 401k matching. But Christine, you should know that I've already filed detailed complaints with OSHA about the substandard steel issue. The investigation is active. They are going to inspect the Des Moines plant next week. When they find materials that don't meet load ratings, when they trace the approval back to Amanda's signature on cost reduction memos, the citations and fines will make my settlement look cheap. OSHA violations in industrial manufacturing can run to $15,000 per violation per day. How many presses have you installed with substandard steel? 40? 50? Her silence told me she was doing that math too, and she didn't like the result. And Christine, I continued, here's the really interesting part. Under Wisconsin whistleblower protection statutes, if you retaliate against me in any way, if you refuse to pay what you contractually owe me, if you spread negative information about me, if you try to damage my reputation or future employment prospects, the damage is triple. Instead of $4.7 million, you're looking at $14.2 million plus attorney's fees. So I think very carefully about your next move. She hung up on me. I was getting used to that. 27 minutes later, Amanda Sterling herself called. Her voice had lost all the smug confidence from our conference room meeting. Now she just sounded young, scared, and in over her head. "Gregory, this is getting out of hand. Can we talk reasonably?" "I've been nothing but reasonable. Amanda, I'm asking for exactly what my contract entitles me to. You're the one who forced my resignation without checking what my contract actually said. The executive team at Quantum is threatening to hold me personally liable for this mistake. Maybe you should have read my contract before threatening to fire me. Maybe you should have listened when I raised safety concerns instead of trying to eliminate me for being inconvenient. Maybe you should have understood that forcing out senior employees without proper cause tends to get expensive. Look," Amanda said, her voice almost pleading now, "what if we offer you $2 million? Full and final settlement of everything. You sign a release, and this goes away. That's a very generous offer. My contract entitles me to $4,766,999.93. That's not a negotiating position. Amanda, that's what you legally owe me. Offering me $2 million to settle a $4.7 million obligation is not generosity. It's asking me to give you a $2.7 million discount on money you already owe me. We can't possibly pay that amount. The Quantum board will never approve it. Then I remain employed indefinitely while accruing costs, and we go to litigation. Discovery will be fascinating. I have documentation of every cost-cutting decision you've made, every safety concern I've raised that you've ignored, every age discrimination conversation where you've discussed replacing expensive experienced engineers with cheap recent graduates. I have Amanda emails where you call me a dinosaur who can't adapt. I have recorded meetings where you said senior engineers are too expensive and we need fresh blood. All admissible evidence. If we go to court, the settlement number will include emotional distress, punitive damages for age discrimination, treble damages for whistleblower retaliation, and attorney's fees that Sarah charges at $575 per hour. We're 6 weeks into this already, so that's about $60,000 in legal fees so far. How high do you want that number to go? If this story hits home because you've been pushed out for protecting safety or doing the right thing, share this now. Drop a comment about your experience with private equity gutting experience workers. Hit subscribe, because sometimes the only protection that matters is a contract they forgot you negotiated when they still valued you. 3 days of silence followed. During those days, I received emails from 2 other Cascade engineers who'd heard through the grapevine that something significant was happening. Both had been approached about voluntary resignation packages and wanted my advice. I connected them both with Sarah Richardson. Turns out their contracts had similar protections, though not quite as comprehensive as mine. Cascade was looking at potential multiple settlements. On day 4, I received a call from someone I didn't expect. Douglas Keller, senior partner at Quantum Industrial Holdings, the private equity firm that owned Cascade. His voice carried the cold calculation of someone who'd made career decisions about money, not emotions. "Mr. Mitchell, I've reviewed your contract and your settlement demands. I've also reviewed the circumstances of your resignation. I want to be direct with you. I appreciate directness, Mr. Keller. Quantum made a significant mistake in allowing Ms. Sterling to force your resignation without proper contract review. That mistake will cost us money. The question is how much. Your settlement demand of $4.7 million will substantially impact our EBITDA targets for Cascade, which affects our planned disposition timeline. That sounds like a Quantum problem, not a Gregory Mitchell problem." He actually chuckled. "Fair point. Here's my offer. We pay your full contractual settlement, all $4,766,999.93. We include your legal fees up to $75,000. We provide a signed letter of recommendation from Robert Cascade, Jr., who still holds the title of Chairman Emeritus, stating you were an exemplary engineer who contributed significantly to the company's success. We include mutual non-disparagement clauses. You sign a release covering all claims, including the age discrimination and OSHA issues. But," he continued, "we need 2 things in return. First, you consult for us for 90 days to help transition your engineering knowledge to remaining staff. We'll pay you $1,000 per day for this consulting work. That's an additional $90,000. Second, you help us remediate the substandard steel issue quietly before OSHA finds problems that trigger public citations. You work with our engineering team to identify every affected unit, and we replace the materials properly. No one gets hurt. We fix the safety issues, and this doesn't become a public crisis that tanks Cascade value. I was quiet for a long moment, considering. What happens to Amanda? Ms. Sterling has been asked to pursue other opportunities. Her employment with Cascade ended yesterday. We're bringing in an experienced COO who actually understands manufacturing. And the engineers you've been pressuring to resign? We're reviewing their contracts now. If they have similar protections to yours, we'll honor them. If not, we're offering enhanced voluntary packages that are actually fair. 6 months' salary, not 2 weeks. I want the OSHA complaint to remain active until I've personally verified every piece of substandard steel has been identified and replaced. I won't sign off on anything that could get workers killed. Agreed. Your safety oversight will be part of the consulting arrangement. Then we have a deal, Mr. Keller. Have your lawyer send me the settlement documents. The settlement finalized on November 30th, 2025. A wire transfer for $4,841,999.93. The full settlement plus $75,000 in legal fees. Hit my account at 2:17 p.m. Same day, FedEx delivered a signed letter of recommendation on Cascade Manufacturing letterhead from Robert Cascade, Jr., praising my 25 years of exemplary engineering service, innovative problem-solving, and unwavering commitment to safety and quality. Sarah Richardson reviewed the 53-page settlement agreement, checking every clause, every relief provision, every non-disparagement term. Everything was in order. I signed it. My resignation officially became effective on November 30th, 2025 at 2:17 p.m. I was no longer an employee of Cascade Manufacturing. I'd successfully converted what they'd intended to be a forced resignation with zero severance into a $4.8 million settlement. The 90-day consulting period was actually satisfying work. I identified 4 to 7 industrial presses across 6 client facilities that had been installed with substandard steel. Working with a new COO, a guy named James Morrison who actually had 20 years of manufacturing experience, we methodically replaced every single component. Cost Cascade about $2.1 million in materials and labor, but 0 workers got injured, 0 OSHA citations, 0 lawsuits. The 2 other engineers who'd contacted me, their contracts were weaker than mine, but Sarah negotiated settlements of $890,000 and $1.2 million respectively. Quantum had learned an expensive lesson about reviewing contracts before forcing resignations. As for Amanda Sterling, I heard through industry contacts that she lasted exactly 6 weeks at her next position, a VP role at another private equity portfolio company, before being asked to leave. Turns out that a pattern of poor judgment and safety violations follows you in a surprisingly small industry. Today, I'm 54 years old and semi-retired. I do occasional consulting work for manufacturing companies at $1,500 per day, helping them with engineering challenges and safety optimization. But I've also become something of an accidental specialist in employment contract protection. I've been contacted by 32 different engineers and technical professionals over the past year, all facing similar forced resignations after long careers. I teach them what my father taught me during his 38 years as a union steelworker: know your worth. Document everything. Read every contract. Never let corporate executives bully you just because they have impressive titles and expensive lawyers. My 1-sentence resignation letter is framed in my home office now, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that sometimes the most powerful defense isn't dramatic confrontation or public exposure. Sometimes it's understanding contract law better than the people trying to exploit you, and having the patience to let legal consequences unfold exactly as written. Hand in your resignation or we'll fire you. Those were Amanda's words. 2 days later, their lawyer's voice was shaking. 2 weeks later, Amanda was unemployed and I had $4.8 million in my account. And 4 to 7 industrial presses got fixed before anyone got hurt. The panic in their eyes when they finally read that contract? Absolutely priceless. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's getting everything you're legally owed while protecting workers they were willing to endanger for profit margins. And watching their faces when they realize that forcing out a senior engineer without reading his contract was the most expensive mistake of their careers. Never sign anything without reading it 3 times. Always know what your employment contract actually says. And never underestimate someone with 25 years of experience and access to competent legal counsel. Because sometimes the person they think they are firing is the person holding a $4.8 million insurance policy they forgot existed.